I'll now hand you over to Jane. As a reminder, Jane has significant experience on product and market development. She has worked with several companies from overseas that are keen to enter the UK market. She began her career with a PLC in Scotland, and she was responsible for creating and standardizing the sandwich offer. So I'm once again eager to hear from you, Jane. So over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that we've got our slides up this time too. No glitch this morning for you. Welcome, everybody. Great to know that you're all thinking at least about the UK market and wanting to know more to increase your chances. I'll just quickly move on to my next slide. All right, wait a minute. Wrong screen. Right. Right, there we go. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about market reports that we recommend people do on their own on the market they're coming into, how to create one, what it's going to help you with, how to choose which distributors to approach, routes to market, and then pitch decks, giving you an example and walking you through one, and also giving you a template at the end in the slides that you can download so that you can create your own one. And so I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go. So market reports, we think, are the first step. If you are thinking about coming into a market, it's really good to understand, first of all, what your own brand values are and the things that differentiate your product from others. And try to be as realistic as you can about that. Some people will always tell us that their product is the best one and that it's simple, but if you can highlight specific things that are genuinely different about how you make your product, where you source it, how you package it, shelf life, all of those things, it will really help other people to understand whether or not it's something they should be stocking. Then I would say, because we're talking today about retail and we're also talking about looking at how you pick partners in the UK. So think about the retailers, and if you don't know who they all are, we can help you with lists of supermarkets and smaller independent retailers. There's also an organization in the UK called the Guild of Fine Food, and they list all the retailers, the independent retailers that are members of their organization, and they also list all the distributors that are members. And their fees are relatively low for a membership organization, and it can be a very useful way to get a good idea of the market and to have names and addresses of distributors and businesses, and also to know something about the quality of those businesses and distributors because they're part of that Guild of Fine Food. It just is a kind of filtering system. So that's one way. Also just looking up retailers in the UK by name. You can find a lot. Most UK supermarkets have an online presence that you can order your food and have it sent directly to you, which is a very useful thing for looking at pricing on products as well. You can enter their online shops and have a very good look at competitor products that are in that part of the market. So it's useful. Then on a store level, we encourage people to look at what some of the stores that they want to get into look like, and how your product would look in that store. People have shelf-ready packaging very often, that you just open and slot onto the shelves, but not every retailer uses those. And I've got an example later on of some products where you can't see the bottom of the product because of the way it's displayed on the store shelf. So you need to pay attention to where your product is likely to be and how it's going to look. And so I'm just saying too at the bottom that we can give you a hand with market reports. And certainly I'm going to show you some examples from one today to give you an idea. So this is the next page of that. And this is an example from a chocolate company based in they're actually a New Zealand company, but their chocolate comes from the Solomon Islands. And so the square grey box on your screen is what they say are the features that make them different from other people. They use a lot of symbols to show what they don't have in them, and they talk about their product, but they're very clear about what makes them different from other people. And then at the bottom where it says Montezuma, this is just a tiny extract from an Excel spreadsheet that we would prepare for them of all the other products of a similar nature that would be in the market. And that £5.20 is the retail selling price for that product. And then the weight of it, what the packaging looks like, you know, what's in it, what claims they make about it. So we would do that for every competitor product so that when you're looking at setting pricing and also looking at whether there's room in the market for your product, you're aware. And the two images that we have, the first one is from Selfridges, the department store in London. And what you can't see very easily is that their shelves have a glass edge to them. So these things just look like they're sitting there and may fall off, but in fact they're behind glass. But it means you see right to the very bottom of each product. So if the bottom is where you say which variety it is, or how much cocoa percentage is in it, or what the country of origin is, that's great. The other picture is from a different store. I think it's from Whole Foods. I'm sure it is, in fact. And they are putting everything out in shelf-ready packaging. So you don't actually see the bottom of the bars. So it's really important that you know what your products look like. Shelf-ready packaging is great because if the product's missing from the shelf, it shows people what should have been there, tells them the name of the brand, it can give them some more information, but you have to watch what it might be hiding along the bottom of your product and just make sure that people can see everything that you want them to know. Because you can see there's a fair amount of chocolate in these stores on shelves, all different brands. And so you only have a few minutes really to get people's attention. Picking a distributor to sell to. This is just so again, I'm talking retail, and I'm going to talk specifically about independent stores. And I think I said a little bit this the other day, and I'll just quickly touch on it. If you land a big supermarket contract as an unknown brand, you may go in quickly, but you equally will come out quickly. They have very tight prescriptions on how many products you have to sell in a set period for the amount of shelf space they've given you. And if they see that you're not getting that buy-in from customers, you can come out, and it's very hard to stand out in a very big store. Whereas if you go first into independent stores, they often will allow you to do sampling, or they will arrange for sampling. They will get their staff to do it. Their staff will be able to tell their customers, they know their customers, they can tell them what's new since they've last been in store. And so it's really useful sometimes to begin in the independent sector and build your brand and build your name before you try to go mass market. So that I'm assuming that you're going into the independent sector. So if you're trying to choose a distributor, you need to know what sorts of stores they distribute to, and whether they are the stores that you're trying to target. And you can ask retailers in the UK, you can ask staff on the floor who they get deliveries from, and they'll tell you. You can ask, sometimes retailers will tell you, we want to stock your product. Could you deal with this person, please? Because we like this distributor. We have a strong relationship with them. So you need to look at that, and then you need to weigh up which one or possibly two distributors you want to go with, depending on if you're in health food, if you're in wanting to get into independence and things. So you need to weigh up what you're trying to do to know who's best for you. Look at other brands, ask other businesses online that you know are dealing with those distributors, how they find them, how supportive they find them. Look at what you think your final retail price is going to be. I'm going to look a little bit more about pricing in a minute, but does it fit with that distributor, or is everything that distributor sells at a lower price than your product would be? And so look at all of that when you're looking at who you want to work with and then who you're going to approach. And then also, what are you going to do yourself to support that distributor in getting your product on the shelf, in having people ask to stock your product? You know, what are your minimum order quantities? Are you going to give them a small initial order so that they can just get out and get trying it? Or are you wanting them to take a big amount, which means there's a big amount of risk for them? Are you supporting social media in the UK? Are you using Instagram and TikTok with messaging that, you know, will attract UK buyers and consumers to you? What testimonials and endorsements do you have? So you want to have a look at all of that. And then this is just on a few things. A lot of people who are buying from you, a lot of distributors and retailers will expect you to be delivering duty paid. So in other words, where Adana's eyebrows going up, it surprises a lot of people, but a lot of distributors will work like that with you. If they work FOB, some of them do, but generally I would assume that they're going to expect you to deliver it right to their door and be responsible for the product right up until that point. So you have to work that into your costings. And the other thing that we find often trips people up, margin and markup are used by people as if they're both the same word, or have the same meaning, and they really don't. So your margin is your sales minus your cost of goods, all your costs, including your delivery costs, you know, including any additional costs that you're going to have in terms of clearing customs and things, all of those costs in there. And so your margin focuses on your profit relative to the selling price. So it gives you an idea of overall profitability. We would always tell people to talk about margin, and most distributors here will be talking to you about margin too. But if anyone says markup, it sometimes is they're just using the wrong word. But make sure you clarify with them what it is, because markup is the selling price minus the cost price, which gives you no indication of how profitable that product is going to be for you. So you really want to be looking at margins with them. And as a rule of thumb, distributors are looking at somewhere between 30 and 35% margin, and retailers want 40 to 50% on top of that. Some retailers take more than that, but they tend then to sell at a higher RRP than you might recommend in order to get it. Distributors sometimes will come down a little bit to meet you on margin, but remember that you're asking them to sell something into the market that is probably not known in our market yet. So you really want them to want to sell your product. So you've got to agree margins that allow you your profit, allow you to support your brand, allow them some margin, and allow the retailer's margin. So these are a good guide, but they're obviously not set in stone, and you need to have that discussion about, you know, the number of promotions and things they're going to want you to have and how much of those you have to fund yourself and they also will probably have their own trade shows, and they'll want you to support those and come and sample your products and things, or to send somebody to represent your business there. So you need to be sure that you understand what they expect from you before you can really agree pricing. In the UK, most retailers will take small quantities of product from you, a number of cases. They're not going to take a container of something, and certainly not in the first instance. They're not going to take containers. Sometimes they will take a pallet, but they want a mixed pallet from you of different products. And so it's important also now, because of the change in the UK law, where you have to have, because we're no longer part of Europe, you have to have a UK trading address on your product. Because of that, a lot of people find that they need a distributor, even if they were dealing direct before, they need a distributor so that they have that retail address. There are some other ways around that, and I can talk to people individually about that if they're looking for something, another way to do it. If you want, for instance, maybe to have 2 or 3 distributors in different parts of the market, so you don't want to print somebody's address on it, you can have a food business address that is not your distributor's address added to it, but it needs to be a licensed address. So there are other ways to do it. So the UK specialty market will be looking for deliveries from you, probably into a distributor and then into them, so that they're getting one delivery, or one delivery a day, one delivery every couple of days from that distributor. They're getting one invoice a week or one invoice a month. They're not necessarily going to want to deal one-to-one with you, and especially if they're only going to take a case and then another case, it wouldn't be economical for you to be sending that by courier from outside the UK either. Another thing that often people don't consider is if you set a very high minimum order quantity in order to keep your freight costs down, I mean, I understand why people do it. It can mean that your best-selling product is almost always out of stock as they wait to build up enough stock to be able to place another order with you. So certainly in the early days, while everybody tries to work out what products are doing well for you, you want to cover all your costs, but you maybe will reduce your margin, and you'll maybe have a conversation with the distributor too to see if they can do the same, so that you can help them establish your product properly. Some people also use third-party logistics companies to ship an amount to, and then store that in the UK and then use that to feed out to their supply chain. And again, if you're going to do that, you need to look at the cost of that before you agree your pricing. Most companies, most retailers will take product into a central depot and then distribute it. So if they've got more than one store, they'll take it to a central point and deliver it out to their stores. A few of them will ask you to deliver it to all their stores. So if you're dealing with somebody with multiple stores, just make sure again that you understand what the deal is. But if you're dealing through a distributor, you would put it into your distributor's warehouse and they would put it out to the individual stores. So then I'm gonna, so have I done that one? I think I've maybe duplicated a slide. No, I haven't. So I'd mentioned delivery duty paid before. We talked about margin on the previous slide. I added in an additional slide. That's why, to make sure I had some more detail on that for you. You've got to look at the most practical route to market, depending on your product category. So depending on shelf life and things, look for the distribution channels that work with you. Look at distributors who are doing chilled or frozen if that's what you need. And I've just covered the specialty retailer multiple and the other points on that slide. So I'm going to forward on. I see what I did. I duplicated the slide. Okay. I'm going to talk to you about preparing a pitch deck for either a retailer or for a distributor. And this is really like your first meeting with them. It's your chance to get your foot in the door and get interest with them. And you'll hear you'll hear from Laura later, you'll hear how many people approach her. So this needs to be a really catchy document. It needs to be a maximum of 12 to 14 pages. It needs not to just put in loads of information because you've got it. It really needs to hone down what they need. And my next group of slides are an example of one, but this is the list of what you need in it. So you have to have the brand name right up at the front and a very clear image of what your product is. Then you need 5 things about your business, up to 5, and 5 about your product. So they understand the difference, like what your products are, what you're offering them, your unique selling points, and really unique selling points, the things that totally differentiate you, the things that make you think they need to have your product because they don't have anything else like it. a brief business history and timeline. And if you're somebody who's looking to export, then I would say tell them the other countries you're already exporting to, if that applies, because it will give them more confidence that you're understanding how you're going to do that. Then have one page that focuses on a key product. If you're offering a range of products and you need to have more than one, really don't have more than 3. So pick your 3 best. You can tell them at the bottom of the 3rd slide there are more, but all you're trying to do is have a conversation with them. So, and then any accreditations that you have, and I'll show you examples of that in a minute, quality standards, where you think your product will sit in a store. So what it's going to be next to, is it in confectionery? Is it in food to go? Is it in, soups and meals? Is it in spices and seasonings? Tell them where it's going to be so that they can see if they think that matches up with what they're thinking. Tell them about the promotional support that you can lend. So tell them if you're prepared to do sampling sessions, or if you can organize somebody in the UK to do them. Tell them that you'll do a number of promotions in the year, that you'll agree those with them. Tell them that you'll do some independent food shows and festivals aimed at consumers to get the word out. Tell them that you will do social media for the UK, anything that allows them to understand how you will help them grow your brand. And then put your direct contact information in. It's amazing how often people send these without any way of anyone getting in contact with them. So put that on your final page. So here's an example, which I think really brings this to life. This is a Solomon Islands Chocolate Company, the one that I showed you the market report page from. Sorry, just gonna mute myself and have a quick call. Sorry, right. So this is their product page. It tells you who they are. They're a real chocolate brand. Straight away on the front page, just a very nice, good quality photo of their product. Then it tells you what is different about their business. I'm not going to read it all out to you because it just applies to them, but it's very clear what sets them apart in a very crowded market of chocolate bars. So that's just about their own business specifically. And then they talk about their chocolate and what is different about their chocolate versus other chocolate that you might be tasting or already selling. So they're very clear, and they use some very clear images to show you where their chocolate comes from and what they believe sets it apart. And then they talk again about how long they've been doing this. So this is kind of like their timeline. So they're saying, it's how long we've been doing it. This is who we work with. We're in this many stores. So they're mainly in New Zealand and Australia, but they're letting you know that they've been established for a period of time before they started to come into a new market. And then they tell you a little bit about how their chocolate helps the farmers and the other people that are in their chain, and that they do absolutely everything end to end in their own business. They're one of a very small number of chocolate manufacturers who have end-to-end control of their business. So it's a good point for them. And then they tell you, there's the example. So they have a cocoa farmer, and then they have their chocolate factory. And then they show you on a timeline how many other people would be involved in other people's chains. So it's a very clear demonstration. And then they tell you what difference that makes to the people that they are buying in agreement are buying chocolate from. Then they have their range. So this is one of the ranges that they're hoping to get into the UK. They have a second page with a second range. They tell you what's different about it, what shelf life it has, what accreditations it has along the bottom in symbols. And then they have a third range. And I mean, they have a lot of chocolate. So the fact that they whittled that down to 3 pages really did take them a long time. And it's got coconut sugar in it and organic coconut oil. Now, they've taken the word organic off their packaging now for the UK, because of this thing that we talked about the other day, where end to end, if it's organic, even your distributor has to be organic. So it can narrow down a lot of the process and a lot of the people that you could choose to work with. So they've actually taken the word organic off theirs now so that they aren't doing that in the UK. They have a big point of difference that the amount of heavy metals detected in their chocolate versus a lot of the major UK brands is very different. And so they make quite a play on that to let people see that there is no lead in their chocolate, no cadmium. It was never something I had thought about before I started working with them, but it's amazing how many of the very big brands, because of where they're sourcing their chocolate, have a lot of heavy metals in them. And so then they're showing that these are tests they've done on other people's chocolate, how much lead they have in them versus theirs. And that's a big selling point for them. So it's good though, but they've got independent test results. So they're not just making claims about something. And then they've done some consumer testing and they say who their customers are. So again, helping you as a buyer to work out where you might be going to place their product, which stores. So that's clear and quick. Then they tell you what sales and marketing support they'll give you, that they charge you for 11 bars in every box so that you're getting 12. So you've got one to sample, that they do some other consumer shows and things, that they do sampling in stores so that people can taste their chocolate, and that they're prepared to do that in the UK too. And then they show you some of the images from their social media so that you can see that they're proactively sampling and talking about their products and getting their name out there and showing people what their points of difference are. So helping consumers to find their products. Then these are all the certifications that they have and the awards that they've won. And actually, in the last few months, they've won a lot more. So they need to update this slide now. But so they talk about, you know, like where their accreditation is done. That they have a New Zealand vegetarian, a vegan certificate, which obviously isn't the same in the UK, but they have that at the moment. And they have kosher. And then where they've got their organic certification, they were showing that. But I mean, now they've made the decision to take that off. And then some of the awards they've won. So again, if it's an unknown brand to you, it helps you benchmark that brand. Right, well, I am nearly out of time, so I'm nearly there. And then that's their last slide, which shows you who they are and their contact numbers and things, which is great. And then this is, if you click on this link, when they send you the pack tonight, you'll get a blank pitch deck template that you can use to do this. And then we have some information on our website about creating pitch decks, and that more ideas about pitch decks will take you straight to that link so you can get some more support there. And then that's my my contact details too. So if you weren't in the last one, didn't get those, you can have those. So I'm going to switch my microphone off now and let you hear from Laura next, or Adana first, and then Laura.
Thanks, Jane. Laura, I know your time is limited, so you can go ahead. If there anybody wanted to drop any questions in the Q&A box, you are free to go ahead.
Hi everyone. So I'm Laura, and I head up the buying team here at Cotswold Fair. So we are a wholesaler. I'm probably just going to reiterate, to be honest, what Jane has covered off in her presentation. I get inundated, and probably the hardest thing in my role and the team is the amount of emails we receive. It's always great because there's always exciting new products, and definitely seeing the rise in that in terms of people coming up with new exciting things, definitely out of COVID, where people have more time. But for buyers in general, there's generally processes. Us as a business, we used to have an email address that we encouraged everybody to email on, so we could manage in terms of queries for new suppliers, in terms of for us to consider. But what we're using at the moment is a company called RangeMe in order to manage that and actually use an automated system. For us as buyers, probably my biggest thing in terms of really reiterating is do your homework. If you're looking to come into the UK, look at the market. Tastes are different, and also in terms of what your target audience. So probably my advice is always going to people is, what are you going after? Are you a speciality product? So you're looking at going within speciality, or have you got the sights on in terms of the big supermarkets that are out here, and you know it's all going to be about volume. And it's making that in terms of where you want to go after. Obviously, using a wholesaler stroke distributor is a great way in order to get those connections for you in terms of people that they cover. Obviously, there are quite a few of us, and in terms of who they supply. So that's why it's really, you really need to understand who you are going after. And then obviously looking for advice in terms of what route would be best to go down to. So for me, it's really looking at the competition. So probably the areas that I see a lot of products is drinks and snacking. And it's knowing your USPs, what makes you stand out, you know, just because you think, you know, your product is the best tasting, how is that going to get across to people? Because it's all about people in terms of pickup. So the things we will always look at is your branding, and what stands out on shelf. So obviously, again, there isn't a right answer. Probably sometimes in things that we see, it's where it's the origin, and it's also looking at the provenance of the product. And if you have a great story, it's how you can get that across on your packaging and get that across to people. Because within speciality, people love to know where the product's from, you know, in terms of the background, why, you know, why it's, you know, you've developed it. If it's a family recipe, it's been developed out of an allergen, in terms of going that there isn't a market for, you know, couldn't find a product on that solved your issue, so you've come up with your own product. So for me, it's really important to have those key things that would make you stand out on shelf. So packaging is important, and look at things like case size. So in terms of speciality, case size is really important. The smaller, the better. So in terms of people taking on a product, they'll look at in terms of they don't want a massive case size in case it doesn't sell. So in terms of risk, so cases of 6 are probably preferable to 12. So it's looking at things like that. Really making sure your ingredients are clean is really important. Obviously, Jane's already touched on the legislation and in terms of what applies in the UK. So for me, it's making sure that you're happy that you checked all of that. What else is there? And for me, in terms is pricing. Really look at out there, and I'd probably say chocolate at the moment. Chocolate is so hard because obviously of the pricing of cocoa, and it is really competitive. Really look at realistically at the pricing here in the UK and look at where your product would sit, and in terms of the margin aspirations. So obviously as a wholesaler, we don't do it as a free service. We need to make money. So obviously we need to take a percentage. Obviously that will vary across wholesalers in terms of what they want to make, but customers also will have a difference. Within specialty, there is a premium in terms of what they can sell, but there is still a ceiling. And again, it depends on the product. But really think about how people would go about trying. So for me, it's building in the marketing. Again, it's looking at having that budget. A lot of it is sampling works really well. And it's how you can support, you know, listing within stores. So probably those are probably my main things. So realistically is really do your homework in terms of the market, know what's out there and where you would be seeing your product sitting, in terms of where you would see it. So for example, a great one is probably sauces. I see so many different sauces, and what makes that sauce so special. And in terms of for someone to, you know, pay £7 when they've not tasted it? You know, why are they going to pick up your product? So probably those are the things to really think about from me. Okay.
Thanks, Laura. I was actually going to ask you about the sauces and condiments category because we do have a lot of companies in Trinidad and Tobago that manufacture in that segment. So just to get your opinion there, what would you be looking for in that category?
It's within that category, it's one where people are looking for newness and always looking to try things, but you've also got, especially here in the UK, people buy what they know. So in order to make them go and buy something different, definitely the trend at the moment is chili and heat. And it's looking at those different levels. I think what has worked really well is where people are tapping into seasonal gifts. So actually in terms of gifting within food. So where people like to add a sauce, I mean, you've even got people that might take their own sauce to a restaurant because they're so particular, is to also look at a gifting way, because it's a great way to encourage trial where people buy it as a gift. So for me, you can look at how some have gone down the route of gimmicky packaging. So we've got, just to give you an example, we've got a chili sauce, which is, the packaging is designed like dynamite. So it even has the wick. So it just looks fun. So people, you know, it probably doesn't even need to taste probably necessarily. People are buying it on the packaging in terms of going, that'll make a great gift.
Okay. Jane, is there anything that you wanted to bring up specifically with Laura?
Hi Laura, thanks. That is good. And although we did say a lot of similar stuff, I think it's good for people to hear it from you as well, not just from me. I mean, I would say too that I think people have to understand that once you list something, you still need to work with those businesses to support you at your local shows where you introduce your product to your customers, and then with them in their stores to help. So it's not just that they hand it over and that you do everything else. The more support they can give to, the better from there. And I would say on that we're not talking about specific businesses, but with your business, there are some things that make you different from other people. I think you are, we've been working with a Swiss company recently coming into the UK. They've been in the UK for a number of years. They have no idea who any of their end customers are because their distributor won't discuss that with them. So they can't build any rapport with their clients. And I think you're very good at saying who your top 100 customers in a category are so that people can then go out to them with samples and things. You'll let brands come and speak to your team and to your customers and things, and you'll be at trade shows too, both your own shows but also some of the other shows, so that they can meet your customers there. So I think you're much more open than a lot of other businesses are, and that's something people maybe don't think about when they're trying to choose somebody, but I think it's important to do that. And I was explaining earlier on to the team that your business is B Corp. So do you want to just say quickly what that means? Because I think a lot of people outside the UK maybe still aren't familiar with B Corp.
Yeah, so B Corp is accreditation. It's very hard in order to get the accreditation, but it's great that there is a symbol in terms of looking at sustainability as a whole. Just over the last 4 years, it's grown in terms of its presence, and probably even within COVID, actually, a lot of people went through the process because it takes an awful lot of time. To get the accreditation, once you've got it, you have to be recertified. So it's not the case of sitting still. So what you do is they will score you across your whole business activities. And the aim of it is that you are continually improving. So I think as a business, we got a shock when we went to recertify after we got certified, and our score actually went down. And I think we all viewed it as, oh, what have we done, you know, kind of thing. But it's at the thing of that you are always looking to improve. So it will give you the areas of where you've got the weakness and the areas to work on. So you're continually growing in terms of ways that we can improve. So one of the things that we do look at is, obviously with our suppliers, is we do actually run a program of supporting the B Corp process. So we call it an accelerator program that we've run, and actually had suppliers that don't work with us actually join it to go through the process. But as buyers, what we do look at is, if we look at the packaging and we look at the provenance. So it's always questioning. So like for me, in terms of for you guys, it would be coming down to the provenance. So it's, why would we go and buy a product from Tobago or Trinidad? You know, we would always look initially to look at buying something that is within the UK. And again, that's why it comes down to provenance, to say, well, actually, this is the reason why we are choosing this product. You know, simple example is pasta. It's, you know, in terms of good pasta, it's Italian in terms of where it comes from. So customers would expect it to be from there. But for me as a business, we feel we are doing our bit, and it's that whole thing in terms of educating. So as a business, what the B Corp means is we put people, we put people, planet before profit, which from my perspective is a really different approach to any company that I've worked for. And I think that's probably why you'll get I hope I'm actually coming across a bit with the level of empathy. It's very much caring and sharing relationship. So for us, we're listing things that we believe in, and we believe that, you know, our customers would want to stock it. So it's like Jane's already said, it's once you get listed, it's only the start of the journey, and it is a process of working together. It's not the case of, okay, well, list your brand and it's just listed in a catalogue. It's going in there that we believe it's right, and we have a sales team that would be working to push those brands. And obviously we run events in terms of shows, and we would look to share the data in terms of where you've got listings and where we can target. So whether it would be through sampling, sample boxes. So for me, it's very much about partnerships.
That's great. I think that's really useful. Thank you.
But Jane, if I could just jump back to your presentation, though I did have one question about margins. So you would have mentioned that the average distributor margins are 30 to 35%, retailers 40 to 45%. Now, would that apply to dry, chilled, as well as frozen products, or is that specific to one particular type of product?
That's why there's those amounts, you know, variance, because it depends. I mean, it will depend to if your brand is well known or not, because if it's not, they know they're going to have to do a lot more work to push it. So that might push the margin up. If it's shorter shelf life or something that would damage, or, you know, get the packaging would get damaged on shelf easily or something like that, that they're going to have higher wastage with, then there might be more there. Laura, any others that you can think of?
No, I mean, you do have a variance depending on category in terms, and obviously it depends on, you know, where it comes down to the retailer margin, it comes down to where they're located and where they feel that they can push it up. So you'll have some where they want to be more competitive, and others where they feel they could probably put, in terms of the recommended retail, probably sell it, say, 50 to £1 more, depending on the product.
So, but those are a good guide across a wide range of products and a wide range of stores, from some of those City of London stores. Some of them would even have 60% margin, but to be honest, they'll get that by adding on to their retail price. And you'll see products in there, and in independent stores, you'll notice the difference in the retail price. And it's because they can, and because their customers are very often tourists just in for a short amount of time who want to buy something in their store, and they will, regardless of the price of it. So it's a very different market, but farm shops and high street stores competing with other high street stores have to be more competitive. But again, it depends what the product is and how much how easy it is for them to communicate to their customer what that product is. But if you're new in the country, if you haven't got any of the awards, I mean, A Great Taste is a great example. The Great Taste Award results come out next week, the 30th. A Great Taste star or 2-star on packaging is a big deal and will enable people to gauge the quality of your product, to understand that it's been through quite a rigorous judging process. And so if there's your brand of something on the shelf and another 2 brands, they're more likely to pick the one that has the Great Taste Award. Consumers as well as retailers know that. Some retailers and distributors will run a list of award-winning products from this year and will highlight products that have won awards. It's often sometimes easier to get listings too because of that. And we're going to look at that in a bit more detail in the next session. But those are all things that can affect how easy they think it's going to be for them to sell your product. And so what the margin might be, or that they might be prepared to drop a little if you'll drop your minimum order quantities a little, that kind of thing too. Because there is no point in getting a listing if your product is permanently out of stock while they wait to sell the slower selling lines. You know, you want to have availability and things. So it is a real partnership again, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And speaking about partnership, Jane, could you touch a bit more on the level of promotional support that is usually requested by retailers and distributors?
I'll do retailers and Laura can do distributors.
Yeah.
On the retail side, it does vary a lot as well, unfortunately. But for instance, Holland and Barrett, the group of health food stores in the UK, are fairly upfront about how much they expect from people, and they would be looking for 2 buy one get one free, or 2. They very often do things where you buy one, you get the other one for like 10 pence or 5 pence or something. So they will tell you that they want 3 promotions from you in the year, and they want one like this, one that's buy one get your second one half price, and a third one that they'll decide, and that they will decide through the year, and they will expect you to bear the cost of that. So their margin will remain the same. And so, you know, there is that. And we've had people recently who've looked at that and decided it's not viable for them to do it, so they can't. But then other people will say, you know, we want to do it on 10% off, or we want to have 3 days in the year when you'll come in and do a sampling for us. It does vary a lot, but it's important that you understand that. And it's important that in trying to win something, that you still hold back enough money to be able to afford to do those things, because your product won't sell itself. I've had people say to me before, we've had a meeting with Ocado, the online supermarket, and we got a really good deal, and they didn't ask us for loads of promotional money. And I'm like, how will anyone know your product's on their shelf? Because it's online. If you're not appearing on a banner at the top of the page of bread or the page of condiments or something, as an Ocado customer, I don't go looking through to see what's new. It's not like walking down the aisles of a store. You rely on somebody flagging that up for you at the beginning, and it's about getting in people's baskets the first time. So it is about promotions. It is about them sending your, I've had Ocado products before where, because I buy a lot of soup, they'll send me a new soup so that I can see that new one. And very often I'll switch and start buying the new soup. I mean, it works, but I think you need to look at who you're with and how you're going to get that. And I mean, the great thing is social media is massive here and very useful for food and drink businesses, TikTok and Instagram particularly. But you have to have a strategy and you have to be getting those messages over. But Laura, what would you say on the distributor side?
So again, we probably look to say to do 3 promotions. With any new brand that we do, we look to launch on promotions. So how we do it, it's a percentage off. So generally it's between 10 to 20% off. And again, we expect that to be funded. And again, for us, it creates trial depending on the product. And then what we would look at is we want to get people buying it at standard price. but then have it that there's that reward for them to be able to do a promotion. The thing within our sector is you can't govern if people are going to use to put the retail down. Good retailers will do. And again, it's dependent on the product. What some will do is they will buy up on promotion in order to do a promotion to either reduce the price or do a two-for, you know, in terms of a long term. So drinks is a great example where they would do a two for a price for a period because they will buy the stock on promotion in terms of managing that through. But yeah, it works slightly different on our side.
But it is important that you work out what you can do to get your name out there and to get people trying your product. Last year, Laura was saying about the numbers of drinks that they get. Last year, there's a trade show called Lunch in September in the UK, which is a 2-day show. And it is what it says. It's all about food to eat on the go and lunchtime food and things that people would take to their office, that sort of thing. And we counted 230 new drinks there last year because we were trying to help a drink company get listed at that point. You know, so there is huge amounts of competition in categories as well. So you really do have to stand out.
So I'm not seeing any questions in the Q&A box. So I think everybody's very shy today.
Dear Jewel.
But do allow me to thank you, Laura and Jane, for joining us today again.
Thank you.
I know that you are both very, very busy, so I really, really appreciate it. Jane will be joining us again next week, Tuesday, for our last session in the webinar series. In that session, we will touch on trade shows and the best ways in which we could maximize trade show participation in the UK and the EU. So she's going to highlight some specific trade shows that you should consider participating in, as well as some food awards that you could consider applying for. I'm not too familiar with that process, Jane, so I'm looking forward to hearing more from you on Tuesday. So thanks again to everyone that joined us today. You should have my contact information. Jane shared her contact information as well. Regan will share the recording as well as the presentation from today later on this afternoon. So feel free to reach out to any of us should you require any clarification on anything that was discussed today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.